The mythology of this stuff is so it's like we're watching a a new mythology form right before our eyes, and it's such a blessing to be able to see from a thinker's standpoint. You know, to imagine like being around in the Hellenistic times and seeing these Greek mythology come to life around you. Oh, Zeus is living in the fucking in the mountains up there, and we've seen sightings of him. I mean, that this shit hasn't happened in millennia, and it's happening now, and I'm just so fascinated by it, and I think we're pretty lucky to watch this all unfold.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that because we live in a white supremacist society, of course, white supremacy is going to be deeply embedded in the mythology. That is just, I think, a symptom of the white supremacist brainwashing that we are all subject to. And I think it is just important to kind of investigate it. But at the same time, I do think that when it comes to interdimensional beings or extraterrestrials, or I don't know, I think that there is a way in which anything can be co-opted to prove a white supremacist narrative, but I would like to also, like continue the conversation beyond that lens, because I do think
Right.
there is something happening. And also, it's like I did a video about this and just the strange relationship of the Pentagon either hiding information or putting information out. It's like anytime the Pentagon's like, aliens aren't real, I'm like, aliens are real. And the Pentagon is like, aliens are real, I'm like, no, they are not. I feel direct rebellion to the status quo.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. This is there's something obviously going on, and I think that there's like it's a multifaceted. I think that there is something probably I don't want to say magical, probably pan-dimensional or ultra-terrestrial that's affecting certain segments of the population whom we call experiencers. And then there's probably most definitely an extraterrestrial aspect to it all as well. And the way people describe these things isn't what it is. It's just they're painting their own worldview onto their experience. And sometimes if we live in a male dominated society, that's going to come out as a male oriented vision of the experience. Luckily, most of the experiencers have been good, grounded people who don't want to take over the world,
Yeah, totally. I mean, you kind of made me think about just the depiction of aliens too in media are often, I mean, they kind of seem pansexual because they have like a blank crotch, but they are masculine. Like E.T. was definitely a boy.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's funny that I never really thought about that, but I do think there is this kind of perception that all aliens are masculine with or without their blank crotches. I mean, maybe they're pansexual, but I don't know. I do think that the media does present them more as male.
It's funny you bring that up. I remember reading when I first got into this about the gray alien, and there was a doctor. I cannot remember his name. It's on Wikipedia. I'll beep it in later. But he said that the gray alien is probably an archetype of the fetus in the womb. And if you look at the creature, it looks like an undeveloped human being. And the similarities he drew between the two in a kind of a Jungian sense was really, really out there. And that's what I love reading about, out there shit. It just makes me there's some people are inspired by suffering, the normal artist shit. But there is another source of artistic inspiration that exists entirely separate from that. And I think that it's a sense of wonder of the universe around you. And we live in a world so rich with that right now that it is a crime not to tap into it and use it to make something new.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that the gray aliens are potential depiction of humans in the future that are kind of like disembodied in the sense that everything is, you know, in a microchip in our brains. And so we're not really using our bodies because we're in this VR world in which we're participating. So our bodies are really like skinny and our bellies are distended. Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
You don't need genitals. You don't need muscles. You just are like these skinny little bodies with big brains because it's all happening in a VR set.
And another thing is they say that as technology increases, you know, as it steps up, our interpretation of the phenomenon changes, right? So, you know, back in the 80s, it was all about genetics because genetic science had come up, and now it's starting to turn into this AI kind of thing. Oh, they must be AIs from the future. Soon it's going to be, yeah, you just called, I think the future of it is that they're disembodied meta creatures, you know, that have found a way into our universe. I mean, it's going to change every 10 years. And that's what Jacques Vallée said. He said that these things they mimic or anticipate our future technological advances. I don't know if I said that right. I probably didn't. I sound like an idiot sometimes. You should know that.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And I mean, I think it's almost like, again, we're looking at the collective consciousness and what things have been implanted into our brains and then what we're adding to it, you know?
Right. Right.
And I do kind of wonder and think that a lot of the extraterrestrial contact isn't necessarily from another planet, or is it from another dimension, or is it from another timeline? Are they just humans from another timeline that have gone through a process of evolution where, you know, they've kind of become, you know, like our evolution of looking at our world in the VR, like how would that affect our bodies? We would lose all of our hair. And if we don't have enough sunlight, maybe our skin would be gray. Like maybe that is just humans from the future from a different timeline that are doing parallel play in timelines, not necessarily planets.
But you were going to say something about the unconscious.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that like with DMT, you know, a lot of people, there's collective hallucinations that people have, like around elves or fairies or something. But is that because that's what we hear from stories, or is what we hallucinate what we put into stories? Like what came first, the chicken or the egg? So I do think there is this kind of like interesting webbing that happens when it comes to how we hallucinate or experience extraterrestrials. Because who's to say we're even experiencing them as they are seen? I think it's very clear from a scientific standpoint that we do not see or perceive most of reality. You know, it's like our brains are filtering out a massive amount of data in order to make it so our feeble consciousness can perceive reality in a way that makes sense to us. And so, you know, it's like when you do DMT, when you do drugs, when you do acid, or when you hallucinate in aliens, are you just, you know, opening up and just seeing reality of what's always there? You just don't have access to it because your brain is so limited.